Alright, a couple modifications real quick. And let's use move topological. Hopefully that'll work. Just gotta dial that head of the humerus back in. Kind of line it up with what we've got here. Let's turn transparency off. I love that move topological brush. Okay. Okay, verify things are looking reasonable. Move topological is what's really making this possible in this same capacity. Oh. There's too much going on down there for that to function. And move topological. Let's put the put the femur back into place. Okay. And these guys have a different, our neck of the femur kind of comes out at a good distance, excuse me, from basically that insertion. And the ischial spines and all that stuff. There's a good bit of distance there, more than in a lot of creatures. You'll see in dinosaurs, for example, the pelvis and the great trochanter does have this kind of offset, but it's a small offset, because they're designed for a lot of weight coming right down on top. So to have this kind of separate neck really creates a weak point where a lot of stress could build up right at the neck of the femur and could snap. And obviously it's fine for us because we don't have a lot of stuff going on up here and we're not built for running at speed and all that stress coming down. But not for a horse. Okay, I'm not going to modify it too much more than that, although we could. Okay, and they're going to have these really gnarly attachments for bones. Okay. Alright, so we're largely playing in the right territory. The only thing I think we really need that's going to be kind of difficult is we need a keel along the sternum, which we do not have, and we don't even have the polygons to make that happen. So we're going to have to just let that one float for the moment. Okay, but otherwise we have a pretty decent relationship. We have the leg coming out and in, and then down. We've got the flow of the forelimbs where they're coming in underneath the rib cage a little bit and then down, really supporting that weight. So that's all quite nice. And let's pull the head of that in a little bit more. Okay. So now we got a lot more to do. But at this point, it's a matter of hanging individual muscles. Excuse me. We want to hang these individual muscles one at a time just to make our lives a little easier. Or not one at a time, sorry. Hang the groupings one at a time. So that's why we really needed to polygroup that skeleton. Before we do that, though, we probably should get the scapula. In fact, yes, let's get scapula and skeleton. And that's going to be the final component. So I'm going to just mask that, rotate it down along the body. So no longer this way, but down along the body. Okay, and they're not going to have that same coronoid process that we have here. They'll have something, but not like that. So you can just move that in or smooth that out. Okay, and then we're going to move it down into position, and I'm going to put basically the glenoid cavity right there at the ulna, at the humerus, sorry. And then we'll make our modifications from that point. Okay, so different orientation, right? We have the same issue with the hip that we have with the pelvis. Okay, in a human, when we're looking at the way a human is going to be positioned, you're going to need that scapula to work with width coming along this direction, supporting the forces that are specific to our bipedal stance. Okay, that's what we're going to be working with from this view. So the scapula has more dimension in this way, but in terms of a horse, that's an entirely different element. Okay, they don't need that. They don't need the specific width versus height ratio that we have. They have their own width versus height. So let's turn perspective off, and then use move, and I'm just going to drag it out. Okay, that'll increase that spine of the scapula. So I'm going to switch my tactics and go over here to move, and this is just as quick. Pull it up into the withers. Okay, looking good. Alright, and I'm going to smooth the acromion process and then reposition this spine of the scapula so it's more in the middle. Which means I gotta come back, and there's other things I have to adjust. Take that spine up, but then really lose the spine down here. Boom. And then this little tiny, what would have been the acromion process, just give it a little life. A little nodule. Perspective on. And we're getting there. That was interesting. Dropped out of edit mode. I don't do that too terribly often these days. In fact, let's check something real quick. See if I accidentally scaled the model. No. Okay, good. Just flattening that a little bit. Okay. And I think that's about the right angle for that to push backwards. Okay, there we go. Now, let's get in and start to adjust the rest of this. Okay, remember, a lot of craziness. So let's start with the big forms. So I'm going to show the ribs, and let's go with the pectoralis and the abdominals. Okay, and move, control, click, and drag. They are separate forms. Let's do this. There we go. Symmetry still on, and I'm going to just pull down. Put the insertion back. Pull towards the front. Okay, of course we've got that big keel there that we haven't put in, and the pectoralis is much more here in the front. Okay. And do I have? I do. Turn mask by polygroup off. Okay. Okay, getting there. All right. Now, what are we going to do with those pectoralis, right? Because the pectoralis has to, of course, go to the humerus, not so low. It's going to be this big volume in there. So we need to move that into position. So this is when we might come in with, say, move topological or move topological elastic. Oops, no, we don't want to do that. What we want to do, not that either. Have to find a way to get just those guys. Or don't bother. Move elastic. And I'm going to cheat here in a moment. And just smooth that out. Mask by polygroup might be a good thing. Pretty simple when you just treat things in that way. Just keep it as simple as you can to make it happen. Okay, looks pretty bad. Come in with inflate. Okay, now in terms of the pectoralis, we are not going to have that clavicular portion because there's no clavicle. So we want to get rid of that. And in order to get rid of that, got to show everything, Control Shift, and we need to try to get rid of that one piece, right? So let's show everything, Control, click and drag from one part to another, just like that. And now we can go into visibility and we can say hide point. Okay, and then geometry, and there are no subdivision levels, so you can just say delete hidden, and it's gone. So now we have, technically speaking, we have two areas, two parts to this. We have the portion along the sternum, and we have this this other portion along the sternum. And in animal anatomy, we're calling it the pectoralis descendens, and then the transversal one. So basically, the one that's coming down from the top. This is going to come in and connect with the humerus about right towards that lower portion. Yeah, and then the transverse. And I'm going to move that out. We need topological masking for that to work. And we're just going to inflate it. And I need that auto mask by polygroups on. Same thing, topological masking. In fact, sorry, I need to move topological. I'm just going to take that pectoralis. Let's spread it out. There we go. I'm going to take this really small. Okay, and so now let's give this some love. really build that volume. Okay, so sternum, keel, right? And then we're going to pull out a little from here. And the ridge group coming in, so we're going to need that roughly along these lines, and then the next coming in. Okay, cool. Just had to visualize it. Okay. All right, our first two muscles rehung on this craziness. Let's get rid of the breasts while we're at it. Delete hidden. Okay, and then we got more to do. So I'm going to just step by step go through this. If you already know it, jump in. But now I've got the back to do, the serratus to do, and then things will go a little faster with the different groupings.